operational definitions. The purpose of this lab is to test your ability at properly identifying conceptual and operational definitions in journal articles. For example, attractiveness, self-esteem, likability, attributions, etc. Okay, it's a two-part lab. Part one, researching your constructs. So you need to find 2 experiments. These may be articles you've already read for your research project. Perfectly fine. Please read the article and provide the following information. How the authors of each article define the construct conceptually. Again, that's like a textbook definition. How do the authors of each article operationally define the construct? You need to be very specific and detailed in your description of the operational definition. You also must include copies of the pages, not the whole article, where you found the definitions with the definitions being highlighted. To be perfectly honest, that's actually more important than anything that you're going to copy and paste. The highlighted definitions need to be identical to the identified definitions. So in other words, this is not a writing lab. You are not paraphrasing, you are not summarizing, you are providing direct quotes. So again, that's what makes this article is not time consuming. You don't have to read the article like you did for labs 1 and 3 and sort of like paraphrase and summarize it, because what you're giving me is a direct quote. As a matter of fact, if it's not a direct quote, then you will lose points. It must be a direct quote, because I need to know that you actually read it and you understood the definition. So this is not a writing lab, this is a reading comprehension lab, which makes it, again, it doesn't take much time to do, but as you just saw going over operational definitions in chapter 7, it can be kind of difficult. But again, it's just copying and pasting a definition. There's no writing on your own part. The highlighted definitions, again, need to be identical to the identified definitions. Without the appropriate pages, you will lose 5 points for this assignment. This lab requires that you find articles that are in experimental design. Again, we're talking about experiment and measured operational definitions. The only rule is any experiment you want, as long as it's an actual experiment. So you can't use like a correlational study, for example, because there's no experimental or measured operational definition. So the only rule is that it's an experiment. And yes, if you've already read on experiments, feel free to reuse it. You don't need to find a new article if you already have one. This lab requires that you find articles that are in experimental design, so the operationalizations must be experimental or a measured operational definition. The articles do not have to be manipulating, measuring the same construct. So in other words, if you want to find one article that uses self-esteem, and another article that uses attractiveness, or attributions, or likability, that's fine. It does not have to be the same construct. So again, any experiment is fair game. Now, I think the best way to explain this lab is to actually do this lab. So this article is obviously not going to be allowed to be used because I'm about to give you the answers to this article right now. So you can't use this article. Okay. Remember we talked about this on the first day? Or not the first day, but the first day we talked about articles. So the title of this article is Social Comparison, Social Media, and Self-Esteem. What do you think the variables are? Social comparison, social media, and self-esteem. Yeah, those are the variables. Again, read the title. Don't overlook the title. Now, this article actually has 2 studies. One is a correlation, one is an experiment. So I'm not going to use the correlation part, right? I'm going to use the experiment. So, and it's not as easy, I should throw that out there. It's not quite as easy as this. I use the same article every single time. I know exactly where the definitions are. You'll need to find them, of course. But you'll see how, like in this article, for example, even if you didn't know where they were, it's not really that hard to find the definitions often. Okay. So let's start off by working with self-esteem. So let's say that I want to do self-esteem. So I need to find the conceptual and the operational definition to do this article. All right, so let's do it. First of all, let me ask you this question. The conceptual definition, again, is like a textbook or dictionary definition. What section of the article do you think you'll find that? Yeah, someone said introduction. 9 times out of 10, you'll find the conceptual definition in the introduction, right? Because it's going to be in the background. So people will often define things in the introduction. Sometimes it might be in the method section, but more often than not, you'll find the conceptual definition in the introduction. And that's exactly where you're going to find the conceptual definition for self-esteem. So let's go take a look at the introduction. So this is the abstract, of course. Here's the introduction. And again, this article is just really, really well written because it's organized exceptionally well. So we have all the background information on self-esteem in the introduction. Let's just start reading. Self-esteem refers to a person's positive or negative evaluation of the self. That is, The extent to which an individual views the self as worthwhile and competent. Self-esteem is the evaluative emotional component of the broader self-concept and serves various social and existential functions. For example, acceptance in groups meaning in life. So all you do is you copy this, paste it, that's it. That is the conceptual definition for self-esteem. Now you might find another article that they define it differently. And that was kind of one of the things I tried to explain is different articles will sometimes use the same terms but have different definitions. You might not agree with that definition, but at the very least, you know where the authors are coming from. You know what their working definition is. So if you were doing self-esteem, copy and paste, you're done. That's it. All you have to do is copy and paste the conceptual definition, which again, doesn't that look like a textbook definition? Yeah, that's a conceptual definition. Again, not every article is this easy. That's super easy. It's literally the first sentence of that section. So any questions on how I found that conceptual definition? Okay, let's go find the operational definition. Now, the operational definition, I would say 10 times out of 10 is always going to be what section? Think about it. The operational definition is what you did. What part of the paper do you talk about what you did? It is in the middle, it's true. Methods, yes, a couple of methods. Methods, right? Because the method section is where you talk about what you did. What is the operational definition? Think about in Hassan's chapter study, they're describing what they did. 10 times out of 10, it's the method section. That one is actually probably the easier definition to find. Conceptual definition sometimes moves around. All right, so let's go to the method section and let's find, and I don't think it's the first one because this is the, yeah, I think that's the, yeah, this is the correlation. So it's going to be the second study, study 2. All right, so notice, see I'm in the method section. This is study 2, by the way, but see I'm in the methods. Here's the participants in the design, so it's not going to be there. State self-esteem scale. To assess temporary changes in self-esteem, we use, right, operational definition of what you're doing. We use the state self-esteem scale, there's a citation by the way. For each of 20 items, participants responded on 5-point scales. Sample items included, I feel confident about my abilities, I feel good about myself, I feel inferior to others at this moment. So, that is the operational definition. That is the authors telling you, this is what we did with self-esteem. So, because this is a measurement, is this experimental or is this a measured operational definition? Are they, based upon that, are they manipulating self-esteem or are they measuring it? Measuring it. So it's a measured operational definition, right? And that's the DV. So they are measuring self-esteem. Specifically, it's a state self-esteem scale. So that's what they are doing with self-esteem. Does that make sense? So, copy, paste, you're done. Again, I know it's not going to be quite that easy because I've done it, I use this article every single time that I talk about lab number 4, but that's it. Copy and paste the conceptual definition. Again, it's like a textbook definition. Copy and paste what they're actually doing with it. That is it. Again, this is not a writing lab. It's a reading comprehension lab. There should be nothing paraphrased or summarized. It's all direct quotes. I want to make sure that you can actually read the article, identify the definition, and that's it. That's the point of the lab. So any questions on that? Yeah.
So you said 2 articles. Do you want 2 separate pages or all on one?
It should be able to fit all in one. Now, if you find a massive definition, it might require 2 pages, but for this one, because it's not a writing lab, there is no page minimum or maximum. It's however long the definition is. Yeah, because and again, it's just can you identify the definition? That's it. That's all you're doing.
Would you have to take out those 2 papers and paste them?
Yes, good memory. So, again, I am asking, and this is the reason why. Often I will see people that have the definitions, and when I read them, when you copy and paste it, it doesn't make sense, and I'm not sure you're correct. But when I read it in the context of the actual article, it makes sense. Like, okay, I see what you're looking at. Yes, you are in fact correct. To be perfectly honest, the page is actually more important than what you copy and paste, because when I see it in context with it highlighted, I'll read it in the context and say, oh, okay, I see what you're looking at. Yes, you are in fact correct. So the page is actually the more important part than actually doing the copying and pasting part. Because often, I can't really tell if you're correct or not, because when you get a definition out of context, again, not every article that you find is as well written as this article. This is a really well written article in terms of identifying things. Not every article is this well. You might already know that from some of the articles you've read. It's kind of hard to maybe find certain things that you're looking for. But yes, so going back to your question, I would need to print out page 9, because this is all on page 9, and then I would need to print out page 3. So page 9 and 3, and that's it. Again, this is an 18-page article. I don't want you wasting all that paper. So just page 9 and page 3. Highlight them, yeah, and that's it. Just those 2 pages. So again, any questions on how I found the self-esteem definitions? I'll do one more, just to make sure we're okay.
So copy and paste and then highlight?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, do label it, and there is some formatting which we'll get to. So I will talk about the formatting, but yeah, do please label them. So put like article 1, conceptual definition, and then article 1, operational definition, article 2. Yeah, so do label it so that I know what you're talking about. Some people don't label it, and I have a hard time figuring out which one is which, especially if you find articles on the same constructs, which you don't have to do, but you certainly can. Just make sure you clearly label everything so I know what it is that you've copied and pasted. But yeah, copy and paste. Print the stuff out and make sure you highlight the appropriate definitions, and yeah, that's it. Any other questions then before I show you how to do one more? Okay, let's do social comparison. Social comparison is it's a concept in social psychology where you compare yourself either to someone you perceive as better than you or worse off than you. They call it upward and downward social comparisons. Okay, so let's go find that conceptual definition. Again, introduction. Social comparison. There's a good chance it's going to be there. So, humans are thought to possess a fundamental drive to compare themselves with others, which serves a variety of functions, such as fulfilling affiliation needs. There's Stanley Schachter, by the way. Evaluating the self, making decisions, being inspired, and regulating emotions and well-being. Upward social comparison occurs when comparing oneself with the superior others who have positive characteristics, whereas downward social comparison occurs when comparing oneself with inferior others who have negative characteristics. Copy, paste, there's the conceptual definition for upward and downward social comparisons. Any questions how I got that? Again, it's like a dictionary definition or textbook definition, and that's what a conceptual definition is. So copy, paste. Make sure you please label it clearly, and that's it. Questions?
What if we copy paste away with that citation?
Oh, either way. So if you want to remove the citation, because often when you copy and paste them, they turn into weird symbols. That's fine. So for example, if I see weird symbols, I know exactly what that is. So either way, doesn't matter. All right. Now let's find the operational definition, which again is going to be in what section? Methods. Yeah, conceptual definition is actually the harder one to find because it's not always in the introduction, although it usually is. Operational definition is always in the method section because by definition, that's what the method section is. It's an operational it's all a big long operational definition and then participants and other things, but it's all operational definition, so it's always going to be the methods. All right, so let's go back down to that method section. Again, the first one's a correlation, so I'm going to study 2. Oh, went too far, I think. Yeah, no, too far. Okay, so you study 2. Method section. I think it's... here it is, okay. So I'm looking at manipulations. What variable gets manipulated?
The independent.
Independent variable, right. So we're reading about the IV here. All right. So I'm jumping down to paragraph 2. The characteristics of the profile were manipulated along 2 key dimensions. First, to manipulate the user content to convey upward or downward comparative information, right? That's what they are doing with upward and downward social comparisons. Thus, this is the operational definition. The target profile was either portrayed as engaging in healthy behaviors, upward comparison, or unhealthy behaviors, downward comparisons, and then this one is actually kind of long. I think it goes on for most of the rest of this, and actually well down into there. So sometimes definitions are long. Sometimes they're short, and sometimes they're long. But so, that's the operational definition. This is the authors telling you, okay, so we have upward and downward social comparison. What are we doing with them? They're part of the profiles in this computer thing that they're doing. And it's explained right there, and it's part of the independent variable, what they are manipulating. So upward, social comparison, it was like the healthy habits, downward, the unhealthy habits. All right, so you would copy that, paste it, you're done. That's all you're doing for Lab 4. So any questions on it? Yeah?
So let's say this article had 2 things you can measure. Can
Yeah.
you just use one article then?
No, I do want you to find 2 articles. Yeah, so that's a common question. Again, I do want you to use 2 different articles. Now, again, it doesn't matter if it's the same construct or a different one. So if you find 2 articles that measure self-esteem, that's fine. If you want to do one on self-esteem, one on likability, or upward and downward social comparisons, that's fine as well. But yes, I do want you to find actually 2 different articles. Again, it has to be an experiment, and otherwise that's the only rule, really. Yeah.
Also, could a duplicate if someone else that does the same article you do?
That's fine. Yeah, there's no rule against that. Yeah.
It was the same question, like from our group, if it was like for a group article.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, yeah, that's fine.
But
Absolutely.
it doesn't have to be from our group article.
No, it can be anything. So yeah, and that's another good question. So I know you're all really like immersed in your own experiments right now. You do not have to use a construct that you're using in your experiment. Again, any construct, as long as it's an experiment, is fair game. Obviously, you can't use this article because I just gave you the answers. But yeah, it does not have to be an article from your group. Does not have to be a construct that you're using in your experiment. Anything you want, as long as you can identify the definitions. That's all I want. That's all I want to know from this assignment. All right. So any other questions on that before we get to the formatting, and that's it. Okay, and like I said, we're gonna have plenty of time. It's only 6:15 right now. I recommend if you can, try to at least start this lab tonight and then run it by me if you get stuck. Again, it's students that don't do this right away that struggle with this because then students forget, how exactly am I supposed to do this?